right, and welcome back to On Location. And today I want to take you into Bigfoot country. No, not the Pacific Northwest, but kind of the Southeast Appalachian Mountains version. And I decided to call this video that because I was going through this area. That's kind of what I was thinking about. Maybe Bigfoot's around the corner. But before we get into the woods, although this did happen in the woods, I do want to discuss a waterfall that I saw. This is a trip up to the Appalachian Mountains, the Blue Ridge Mountains in northern Georgia, far north Georgia. And I ran across this waterfall in a state park, not what I was expecting, but it really worked out pretty nicely. And let me show you some of the shots here on the screen. One thing I noticed right off the bat, this was a state park, like I said, so they had a path leading up there, a little trail, and they had a little boardwalk to lead up there, but you got incredibly close to it. Most of these things, you're off there in the distance someplace looking up at the waterfall, but in this case, literally, you were right on top of the mist was spraying on you. Not too bad, but it was. But I think it really worked out well. This was actually in the middle of the day. I was scouting locations, so you did get some pretty harsh light. But I think it really works in these particular ones. I just love that kind of that glow coming off the water there. I decided to interpret a lot of these in black and white, but there are a few color ones in there. And I'll show you a couple ones that kind of caught my eye that I want to discuss specifically individually. One of these I decided to do in color is kind of a close-up there of the water, and you get to see that little that branch or log or whatever you want to call it that's laying down there, and the water kind of coming over it. I did do some saturation here to make it a little bit more exaggerated, but I loved how the blue and the yellows and the oranges kind of merged together to create that nice flow, and I think that image was pretty successful. Now, probably the most successful, I think, of this particular location was this next one here, because it's such a contrast here. So you've got the waterfall obviously there in the background. You have the rushing water. This is moving fast. I know you saw that there in that video. And then you have this division where you have this log right here, this tree branch. And then almost on the other side of that, there's this calm, almost nice little teeny tiny stream waterfall that's coming right down and just has this nice pleasant thing. And obviously you see how that's being wrapped around there by the rocks and those plants there in the corners. So I thought that was a really successful image. Really pleased with it. Again, not expecting it on this particular trip, but it was really nice to see that little waterfall there. So now obviously when you go down a waterfall, there's going to be a stream or a river at the bottom where the water continues on. And so I went down there and I got these extra couple shots here, and I had forgotten my tripod that day by accident. And this kind of forced me to balance the camera on, either a rock or a tree limb or something like that. So I think I actually got some compositions that I wouldn't normally. I'll give you these couple ones here. One of them's in black and white, one of them's in color, but it's the same basic area. There's just something special about the water. It's almost looks like milk or something like that. If you look at the flowing water, these are obviously multi-second exposure. That's why you get that smoothness of the water. I really like the color one because I think it's nicely framed. If you look in the bottom left-hand corner, you have that tree branch there. And as you go up, you see that you have those leaves there that are out of focus, but kind of give it a nice frame. And I think worked out really well. These next couple ones, well, especially this next one here, really shows the force of the water there as it was coming down. It was moving very, very quickly. As you saw, that waterfall was quite powerful, even though it was, rather small. And then this shot, again, this is almost taken by accident. I'm trying to find a place where I can balance my camera so I can do a multi-second exposure, because you can't handhold the camera for multiple seconds and have any usable result unless you're trying to do a blurred picture on purpose. So I really think this one with the nice boulders there in the foreground, you see the white water there in the background, and a nice little detail shot that I think really added some character there to the image. So I was really pleased with that one. Okay, so then we went along and I left the park and I headed towards a lake, and I think we have some footage up there that we'll show. Kind of your typical, I would say, mountain lake, but definitely a little lower elevation because the Appalachians aren't too high. I decided, because of the time of day, I was actually planning another location later that afternoon. for closer to sunset. But I decided not to photograph so much the whole lake. The light really wasn't there. So I took a little path around the lake, and I actually ran into these wonderful little inlets or something like that were nice and shaded. Really worked out really well. I'll show you a first one here, just to show you, even though this was done in winter, you can still find color. I really like this picture because of the color. And you have that wonderful blue there in the sky, and you have the orange there of the sands and the dirt. I think that kind of made a nice composition. I think the tree limbs there frame it quite nicely. And of course, as you can see, the cat has now decided to go over there and step on our pictures. That's what she does. So we appreciate her helping out every time here in the video. Anyway, so I continued down that path, and I ran into some little plants there in the water, and the force of the water was causing them to kind of move about and wiggle about. So I did a number of exposures, just trying to capture every possible movement there of the plants. And these couple ones, the vertical one I think works well. I like the light kind of, there in the middle. You kind of have some dimension there to it. The next one, though, I was particularly pleased with because you have that blue there from the sky. That's what that is, being reflected on the water on the left side. And you have the contrast there of the dirt and of the ground there, and I think that worked out really, really well. So I was pleased with that. Nice little location. Probably like to go back at some point as well, maybe different season to get you some more of the lake. But I really did like those detail shots. Winter does force you to look a little bit closer, and that can be an advantage. It really brings up your creativity, I think. So then I went up to the Appalachian Trail, which is actually a massive thing, I believe, from northern Alabama all the way to Maine. But in this particular section, I've been here a couple of times. But I went up there again today, that day, excuse me. And again, it is quite barren because of the season. However, what's happened is the leaves have fallen off the trees, and you actually get these little openings that you wouldn't otherwise get in the tree line compared to a different season, just be complete trees. And this particular trail, in this section anyway, goes straight along the side of a mountain ridge, so you can get some pretty good vistas. I'll show you kind of what I mean, though, by the foliage. This is getting closer to sunset, and you'll see here that the sun just kind of created this nice glow there among the limbs, and there's even a little sunflower. I decided to keep that, and I think it added something to the image. But again, completely barren, but again, it still has some character to it. I liked kind of how that image turned out. Just a quick little thing I turned my eye, oh, that looks cool, so I took that picture. Now, I'm going to show you an overlook here. I've been to this location before, and I think we'll flash those up on the screen, those previous pictures. Obviously it's a beautiful vista. That particular day, I think, was back in November I shot that. And got some interesting stuff. When I walked up there was a guy asleep right along on the rocks right there. I'm like, gosh, wish he wasn't there. That's kind of annoying. So I said, well, I don't want to disturb him. So I walked further down, and actually I found an opening in the tree line shortly from that location, which again, in winter you find these things. I took this particular shot. And I know it's not necessarily conventional when you think of a mountain landscape, but I love how these gnarly limbs just, surround the mountain range there. And I thought, oh, that's really, really cool. So I took that shot, and then I also did a wider angle horizontal one. I decided to interpret with a little bit of a sepia tone there. And I think added some character because, the Appalachians, a little rustic, a little rough around the edges. And I think that nice tone that was added to the image definitely added something there. So that is what I've got for you today. That is my trek through Bigfoot country. I did not find Bigfoot. Hopefully you don't think this is clickbait or something like that. But it was a lot of fun. It was a nice kind of plethora of different experiences that day. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed our little trek together here today. And on behalf of Nala here, who looks like, I don't know if you can see her, she's plopped out there on the couch and has taken over our picture using it as a bed. So before she destroys anything else, do appreciate you watching. Be sure to make sure that you like the video, subscribe, follow. We're on different platforms, whatever one you might be on. Appreciate you watching. You have a good one. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Want the papers? You want the papers? You want my hand? You want to rub against my hand? Is that what you want? Okay, yeah, do the papers. Do the papers. Did you brand the papers yet? Okay, you sit there. You good?